In Virginia, 1950-something, Harold was walking home on an isolated dirt road. His family lived quite a ways from anyone and anything in a small rural town. The sun was setting, and Harold was excited to get home to dinner. His mom was an excellent cook. As Harold crested a hill, he noticed a young boy, about 10 years old, sitting on a fence post. He didn't recognize the boy, and Harold knew everybody. The boy wore plain old-style denim overalls and sat motionless. A little odd, Harold thought. But never knowing a stranger, Harold called out a friendly hello and waved to the boy. The boy didn't respond, but rather slowly turned his head towards Harold, but kept his gaze down. Harold could tell something was not quite right, so he wondered if the boy was sickly. "Are you feeling okay? Do you need some help?" Harold called out as he continued to walk towards the younger boy. When he got just a few feet from the child, Harold stopped cold. The boy looked up at Harold, and terror grew inside of Harold. The boy's eyes were solid black. A sudden and jolting wave of dread overtook Harold. He stumbled back. The air felt colder. "Can you take me home with you? I want to see your house. We can play." As the boy spoke, his face was blank, his tone odd and polite. Those eyes, black pools, empty and fearful. Harold swallowed hard, backed away, and before the boy could say anything else, Harold took off. He ran all the way home, never stopping to look behind him. He tore open the back door and ran into the kitchen. Harold was afraid. He told his parents all about the strange boy on the road, his eyes, his blank face, everything. His father and mother believed their son, and Harold's father went to look for the child. But the boy had simply vanished. They asked around for weeks, and no one had even seen a small child on the road that day.
November 1968 in Madrid, Spain. A young boy kicked his ball against the brick wall of his apartment building. The street was uncharacteristically quiet that evening. The usual evening chatter of neighbors had faded, replaced by an unsettling, heavy silence. From the shadow of a closed bakery across the street, two figures stepped onto the pavement. Children, a boy and a girl, appearing no older than 12. The young boy stopped the ball with his foot and watched the children. They walked in perfect sync, their movements stiff and unnaturally deliberate, like marionettes being guided by a hesitant puppeteer. They wore drab, oversized coats that looked decades out of date, despite the booming fashion of late 60s Spain. As they crossed the cobblestones, the temperature in the alleyway seemed to plummet. The young boy shivered, a sudden wave of dread washed over him. Every instinct screamed at him to run inside, but curiosity rooted him to that spot. They stopped just a few feet away from him. "Good evening," the boy said. His voice was entirely flat, devoid of the cadence or energy of a child. It sounded like a rehearsed phrase spoken by someone who didn't understand the language they were using. "We are lost. We need to find our uncle. He lives in your building. Please let us inside." "What apartment?" the young boy asked, his voice shaking. The girl stepped forward, her face tilting upward into the dim amber glow of the street lamp. "We just need you to open the main door. We cannot enter unless you invite us. Please, it is very cold out here." As she spoke, he noticed her face. His breath hitched. The girl's eyes were pools of absolute ink-like darkness. There were no white sclera, no colored irises, no pupils. Just two solid, glassy black voids. He looked at her companion. His eyes were exactly the same. "Our uncle is waiting," the boy repeated, his voice dropping an octave, losing its polite edge. "Open the door. We would like to come in." Panic struck like a lightning bolt. "No," the boy whispered. He dropped his football, turned and ran for his building. He glanced behind him, and the children stood motionless. He slammed his weight against the heavy wooden door of his apartment building, scrambling for the doorknob, and threw himself inside, his heart hammering against his ribs. Through the thick frosted glass of the door, he watched as two dark silhouettes stood on the steps. They didn't knock. They didn't shake the handle. They simply stood there waiting. "Let us in," they said one last time. After what felt like hours, the young boy gathered the courage to peer through that frosted glass once more. The steps were empty. The street was completely still. His mother called them children of the devil. Throughout Madrid in the 60s, there were many different encounters with unsettling, pale children who possessed pitch-black eyes. Locally, these individuals often carried a reputation as devil children or harbinger entities. What they brought with them was never a good thing.
"1996, Abilene, Texas. Brian had parked his car briefly to write out a check. He was leaving work as a journalist when he remembered the payment for his cable bill was due. There in his car, oblivious to everything and situated under the dim illumination of a parking pole, he began to write his check. He glanced up and noticed the local marquee for the movie theater across the street. It was late. The marquee cast light onto the street between them. Jolted from the quiet, there was a hard tap on his driver's side window. Brian looked up, and there at his window was a boy, about 12 years old, and behind him he noticed a second boy, younger, around 9. "Excuse me, mister," the older boy was speaking. Alarmed by their sudden appearance and the lateness of the hour for the two young boys, Brian rolled down his window, just a crack. "Excuse me, mister," the older boy was speaking, but his voice was off, flat, monotone. "We want to see the movie, but we forgot our money. Could you let us in and drive us to our mom's house?" Brian looked a little closer at the boys. Both were dressed in the same way, jeans, t-shirt, and a hoodie. Both boys had the hoodies over their eyes. Brian's flight instincts were kicking in. He didn't understand why. "Please, mister, just let us in. We're just two little boys." The younger one was speaking now. Brian felt panic, and it welled up within him. He noticed his hand was resting on the door latch, and he was about to open the door. He snapped back to himself. "What movie?" he asked, trying to regain his composure. "Mortal Kombat," the older one said. The younger one nodded his head in agreement. Mortal Kombat had been playing for an hour, according to the marquee. The younger one spoke again, as if sensing Brian's panic. "Just let us in, mister. It won't take very long." "Yeah," the older one spoke. "It's not like we have a gun or anything." Gripped with an unnatural fear, Brian put his car into gear. The older one's face flashed anger. And for the first time, he looked into Brian's eyes, and Brian saw his eyes. Cold and empty, vacant of any white, they were just black voids. Muttering some sort of excuse, the boy began to beat on his window. "Just let us in. We can't get in unless you let us in." Brian drove away from the boys, glancing at his rearview mirror, but the boys had vanished. Welcome to Rebel Road. I'm Mary.
And I'm Haley.
We have got an episode today, folks, so I hope you are ready for the stories and the theories because, woo, buckle up, kids, and enjoy.
Yeah, we are chatting about the black-eyed children, black-eyed kids, BEKs, whatever you want to call them. And you want to pay attention, everyone, because this is very important. If you learn one thing from today's episode, it is this. Do not, under any circumstances, let them in if you come across them.
Nope, don't let them in.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, don't crack the window like Brian did in the story. Don't approach them. Don't talk to them. Just pretend you didn't see them.
Right? When black-eyed kids are involved, it is best to rebuke that situation and just back away. You just nope all the way. But, that's just it. The situations, what are they?
Well, maybe before we get into the situations, we should first address the black-eyed kids. I mean, what are they? We may have a few listeners who do not know what they are or have never heard about these.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, we don't know what they are, and we have some guesses, and we'll get into that later, but we do have details that will help our listeners to pick them out. First, let's do a real quick rundown of their descriptions. Obviously, they have black eyes. Like the whole thing is black. The whites, the irises, just imagine the eye is gone and there's just a black shiny void there. But that void, even though it's shiny, it doesn't reflect any light back. So that's a little weird.
That is weird. And usually they are in pairs, one older, one younger, and it's from the ages 16 down to around 6, sometimes younger, but it can also be a single child or up to like a group, but mostly a pair of them, so two.
Right. And they always wear odd clothing, often thought of to be old fashioned or not quite on trend. And they never have any labels, they're just generic clothing. They do love a hoodie. And another thing that I found odd when combing through all these stories is their feet and shoes never seem to get dirty, even when they're out in the elements. And often the clothing has like a homemade element to it, like it just looks like maybe it was homemade and it doesn't match the climate. So they could be out in the rain, but they're just not dressed for it, or they could be out in the cold, it's not dressed for it, stuff like that. So the clothing on the kids is just odd in the situation or the environment that you find them in.
They also stand motionless. They sit very still. And when you do observe them move, it's often commented that their movements are robotic or it's just off. It's a lot of head tilting. So imagine really that creepy movement that you often see in like paranormal movies.
And with that head tilting, they keep their heads down most of the time so that you can't see their eyes unless they get angry or about to leave or right when you're about to let them in.
It is noted that they often speak politely and calmly, never with emotion, unless they are frustrated and angry. So, this flat monotone. Sometimes they may try to speak in an accent, but it's usually a bad accent. And then sometimes that language isn't right.
And they also have pale skin and they can be all hair colors. And Brian, one of his BEKs, he said was actually he had an olive skin tone but was still pale, and the other boy was red hair with freckles. So it's just kind of like a crapshoot on what this kid's going to look like. So you can't always go by all BEKs have black hair or blonde hair because they mix it up. They mix it up all the time. So they can look like any kid, I guess.
Yeah, kids are creepy, but moving on. This one actually freaks me out, and it's not widely accepted or known when you're talking about the BEKs, but and I'm only adding it because of one story that we did listen to. When the BEKs or the black-eyed kids, when they're very frustrated and mad, the teeth become sharp and jagged.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely the most terrifying thing ever. And I did only hear that on that one story. And another thing that's kind of odd about the BEKs or the black-eyed kids is they just kind of appear out of nowhere and then they can vanish just as quickly the same way. You just don't know where they went. So that's just kind of what they look like. So they look like normal kids. They're in pairs, walking around a little odd, and, the black eyes are the dead giveaway. Now, what do they want?
Okay, well, if you can't see their eyes or faces, because that is the only clue you need, they have black eyes, you just say no and you run. But if you can't determine that, these are other things that might help you. First of all, think about if they just appear. Especially in a rural type situation, or if you're at home and it's late, you're in your car and you're in like this empty parking lot. Let's say you're on the side of the road, you're in a forest, on your back deck, on your balcony, even if it's at your door in a blizzard. And let me just say, in any of these situations, if a random child just shows up, you call the police. You see a child, you call the police.
Great advice, Haley. Don't open the door, folks. Your second clue that you want to focus in is that they want something from you. And I don't mean like they're asking for money, they're looking for permission. They want in your home, in your car, to go with you, and they're going to be super polite. super polite. And remember, little kids are fidgety when they're asking for something. You'll hear inflections in their voice. The tone of their voice is going to be calm. They're going to be politely asking. And then finally, if you're just not giving them their answer, they're going to get frustrated and angry.
Sounds a little bit like the devil on a normal day, Mary, but moving on. Now, folks, this last test to see if it is a black eyed kid is kind of a too late detail. But if you've let them inside and then you suddenly become ill or you're losing time, you have these nosebleeds, let's say a pet dies or worse, you die, chances are you came into contact with a black eyed kid.
Right. Real bummer there. Okay, folks. Now we've got a little bit of a foundation. We know what they look like, kind of how to identify if it's a black eyed child and or if it's just a real lost child. But we haven't answered what are they?
They're creepy,
Right. They are creepy.
established.
They are definitely nightmare fuel for real. But I'm talking about where did the BEK legend come from? The last story we told with Brian in the parking lot is where everyone says the origin of the black eyed kids came from. They are considered to be a modern day legend, all stemming from Brian's personal account, which he published 2 years later, back in 1998. Now, this is when the internet was just taking off and the supernatural was blossoming. And some say with that came the legend of the black eyed children.
But hold on, we told our stories in the opening from 1950 and the late 60s. So how could Brian's story in the 90s be the origin story?
And that is the question. I think maybe black eyed children have been around for a lot longer, but maybe just under different names and folklore. Have you heard of Mylene, Haley?
I think you're about to tell us about it.
Right. Mylines are just horrific. They come from Scandinavian folklore. A Mylene is a vengeful spirit and are the ghosts of unbaptized or abandoned children who are seeking a proper burial in consecrated grounds. Now, Mylines target lone travelers at night. They're often small children and have pale, gaunt like appearances and gaping, hollow eyes. Now, I'm not saying a black eyed child is a myling. I just wanted to point out that there are creepy children myths, and some people think that black eyed kids could be ghosts of dead children. And maybe in some instances, but I don't think that at the core that is what a black eyed kid is.
Okay, so you told us about Mylings, but really they're not BEKs.
Right. But, the Mylines are also really creepy.
Well, I'll give you that one. But in general, any child who has this supernatural presence is inherently creepy. I mean, normal kids can be creepy, right? We keep saying that. I love my kids. Mary, I love your kids. People, I know I love your kids. But in general, sometimes kids are creepy. But man, when they're younger, they can do some weird stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I call myself a weird, creepy child if I had to encounter myself as one. I hated dolls. And the one doll mom brought me home that I actually did like, I only liked her because she was kind of big and I could do surgery on her. In fact, after I moved out and years later, because my mom's got a weird thing with dolls that she loves, she had kept that doll and she was putting it in new clothes. And she's like, Mary Elizabeth, what did you do to this doll? Because it had all these scars and stitch lines on its belly from when I did surgery on it. But I really didn't have but one real friend, and I was just fine to be alone. I was very content to be alone because I could do what I wanted to do without anyone thinking that, hey, that's weird. Maybe you shouldn't do that.
Well, what kind of weird stuff did you do, Mary?
Well, I mean, I I don't think it's weird. Still to this day, I don't. But I had a giant cicada shell collection. You know how when they come out of their shells and you can find them on the trees? Well, one summer, it was a summer of the cicadas, and their shells were everywhere. And I went around all through the neighborhood and I collected all these shells. and I filled up buckets of them. And I had hundreds and hundreds of these shells and buckets and buckets of them. And I hid them behind my dad's shed. And when my mom found them, I thought she was going to die. Just stuff like that. I'd freeze flies and reanimate them. And I tried it on all sorts of bugs. Some bugs would come back to life after they were frozen and some wouldn't. But I only used the ice cube trays in the downstairs fridge. So it really didn't harm anybody except for maybe the bugs who didn't come back to life.
Okay, well, how old were you?
I don't know. I was like 6 or 7. How about you, Haley? Were you a weird, creepy little kid?
After hearing that story, I'd like to think that normal is relative. I don't think I can compete with the weirdness that you've just shared with all of our listeners. But,
I was doing science before I knew it was science.
it all makes sense. The pieces are coming together for me now. Again, some kids are creepy, but the supernatural devil kids, they definitely are creepy. So, what else do we think these kids, the black-eyed kids, could be? Should we tell another story? With all of our episodes, we come across so many different examples and stories irrelevant to what the topic is. So, let's think about sharing another story. And with the exception of Brian's story, all black-eyed kids stories are just secondhand accounts and retellings over and over, even Brian's. But you can't always discount everything. We say that all the time. You can't discount what people have shared with their personal experiences. Unless it's the moon landing, then we can definitely discount that.
And if you didn't listen to our episode on the moon, go back and find it. I think it's about 2 episodes back. But let's tell another black-eyed kid story.
In the late 90s, somewhere in rural Vermont, an older couple was settling in for the evening. They lived in a cabin tucked into the forests of Vermont. Only a small dirt road led to their cabin, and you could not see it from any main road. A blizzard had set in, and the husband was tending to the fire when, out of place and disturbing the night, they heard a faint knock at the door. The couple looked at each other. It was late. They were expecting no visitors. Another knock came. Fearing there may have been an accident due to the snow, the wife looked out the window. She saw small footprints leading to the door. "Oh," she exclaimed, "open the door!" Her husband went to the door and opened it. There on the porch stood 2 small children, one a boy about 9 years old, and the second a girl around 7. They were dressed rather simply and had no coats or mittens, no boots, just regular shoes. "Our parents will be here soon. May we come in?" They spoke in unison.
Without really listening to the children, the wife ushered the children into the house to get them out of the blizzard. The husband stood back, unsettled by something he couldn't quite place. Sit down, the wife motioned to the sofa. The children sat in unison. "I'll make some hot cocoa." As she went to the kitchen, the husband stood over the children. Their cat, who was super friendly, had ran off at the sight of the kids. He tried to talk to the children, ask them questions, but they never responded. They kept their heads down, and he noticed they didn't seem cold, and oddly their shoes were dry for having walked in the snow. His wife was back with Coco. They held the cups. "Could we use your bathroom, please?" they asked. "Oh, it's down the hall," she motioned. They looked up at her. Both children had the darkest, emptiest eyes, nothing but black where eyes should be. Holding her composure, she glanced at her husband nervously, who was now holding his hand over his mouth and nose. Once they had made their way down the hall, she asked with horror, "Did you see their eyes?" He let his hand down slowly. He was bleeding, a massive nosebleed. She quickly handed him a rag. The children were coming back. An unnatural fear welled up inside her. "Our parents are here," they said again in unison. They went to the door, tilted their heads to the side, and glanced at the couple one last time as they stepped back out into the blizzard. The wife watched from the window. 2 men in black had stepped out of a later model black vehicle and let the children inside. They too looked at her. She waved a slow, habitual wave. The vehicle disappeared into the night. The next day, the couple found their cat, dead,
surrounded by a pool of blood, and the husband's nosebleeds became uncontrollable. He was diagnosed with a rare cancer, usually developed from radiation exposure, though he had never been, and the wife, too, was plagued with various illnesses. The couple claimed the death of their cat and their health was the direct result of their encounter with the BEKs.
So this is a popular story and one that solidifies the don't let them in. But what we glimpse from this one is the appearance of what we could argue could be the men in black. So this could link our black eyed children to the possibility of alien hybrids with the pale skin and the dark eyes.
Plus, with the radiation, and people claim to get nausea around the black eyed kids. Pets freak out around them. And, pets do that with aliens. And some claim to also just miss time. That uncontrollable panic and the fear that people feel, that is kind of like an alien abduction type thing. Maybe they are little alien hybrid kids that are learning how to be humans.
I like the alien hybrid idea. I just don't know if I'm sold on it 100%, but I do like it. But I don't fall for the black-eyed children is a modern day made up thing like Slender Man. He came about the same time as the black-eyed kids. And Slender Man, we know 100%. We have his origin. We know that he is a made up story. There aren't even anything that we can find in antiquity that matches the Slender Man. But the power of a good story, we have those two girls who tried to murder their best friend so that they could please Slender Man and he would let them run away and live with him. It was absolutely tragic and heartbreaking. Morgan Geisler and Anissa Weir lured their friend Peyton Lautner into the woods and stabbed her 19 times, and she miraculously survived. But it makes you think about the power of suggestion, and could the black eyed kids be something like that?
It's kind of like a tulpa.
Exactly like that, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, a tulpa, for anyone who doesn't know, that is a physical manifestation of a thought. And sometimes it's described as potentially mischievous, these autonomous entities that draw energy from the focus or belief of their creator. So basically, you are saying, Mary, that enough people have read about the black eyed kids and all of these stories that they have now somehow manifested, much like the Slender Man.
Yeah, and there is witchcraft that can manifest from nothing. Those who practice magic often get in way over their heads when they try this type of magic. And we also have something called egregore, which is also created by thoughts or a group. But in occult lore, if the group disbands or stops feeding the egregore with attention, the entity can become desperate and manipulative to survive, twisting the minds of the remaining members to get energy. It becomes parasitic. And these black eyed kids kind of have a parasitic energy almost.
So you think the BEKs could be a type of like energy vampire?
Well, they need permission to come in.
Yeah, yeah. The permission thing is odd, and it just adds that extra layer of ick. Let's tell one more story. There are, again, so many, but it's part of the BEK culture. All of the stories, it's just like Bigfoot. So many different sightings.
Mark had a long day at work and was very happy to be back in his flat. He opened the door with his security key and made his way up to the third floor flat. He put his things on his entryway table and went to the fridge. A nice beer, he thought. He opened the can and sat at his counter. What for dinner? His mind was going over the ingredients he had on hand while enjoying his beverage when he heard a soft knock at his door. He put the beer down and waited. Silence. Must have been someone else's door. He got up and began supper. When he heard the faint knock again, he went to his door and looked through the peephole. There, on the other side, were two children, about 10 and 8 years old. The older a boy, the younger a girl. He cracked the door open. Can I help you? Hello. We are staying with our uncle here. The kids were polite and oddly rehearsed. I think you have the wrong flat, Mark responded. Oh, that's okay. We can stay here. Please let us in. Our uncle will be home soon.
Mark suddenly felt lightheaded and he felt a fear clawing at the base of his spine, an unnatural fear. Then, to his confusion and horror, he opened the door wider. Come in, he heard himself say. The children stepped into his apartment and smiled an empty smile, but more horrifying than their smile were their eyes. Their dark, shiny, dead black eyes. They just stood there motionless as he closed the door, heads tilting, and watching him as he crossed into the living room trying to figure out what to do. And why did he let them in? As he paced, he became so nauseated. He felt as if the life was draining from him. He had to get those kids out of his apartment. His mind raced, the room spun. Mark doesn't remember what happened next. He woke up 4 hours later on the sofa. The door closed, the children were gone. He suffered from nausea and weakness for weeks after the incident. He asked around to his neighbors, and no one had seen any children. Now, I don't know about you, Mary, but this does scream parasite and that energy vampire almost. There's absolutely a parasitic energy that these kids or entities are giving off. Now, is it from the fear that they produce or the actual life force that they can somehow drain? And either way, these kids, they are producing big emotions that are coming from their victims.
I agree. Absolutely, that fear inducing. You find that in every story. It talks about their unnatural response. People just instantly feel on guard and afraid, right even before they see their eyes. And we don't have a lot of stories about people who let them in. Most of the stories we find are here are from people who got the heck out of there. So we don't even know potentially what happens when they let them in. Maybe we just never hear from these people again. Maybe that's why so many people go missing.
Yeah. And remember, folks, we don't let them in, not even in the dead of night, in a snowstorm. You call the cops and throw out a blanket or two if you're feeling bad.
And actually, I want to say that the black eyed kids sightings are becoming a little less now with the ring cameras, and people have cameras in their cars now too. So wherever they are adapting. So are they going to even more remote and rural areas where the stories maybe don't travel as far, or where people just don't talk about them because they write them off like, well, that was a weird thing, and they don't think about it again?
That is an excellent point. Everyone, get a camera for your house. If you haven't, it's 2026. What are you waiting for? But I don't know. Do we have any blurry images of the black-eyed kids? Because, like we say, if there isn't a blurry photo, then it's not real. And again, look at the moon landing, clear as can be.
I know. I don't think there are any photos of black eyed kids, Haley. I think if you see something, it's probably AI. I think they catch people so off guard and then they disappear as fast as they can to even think about taking a photo. And if they are, it's like a ghost image or something. Plus, I'm not sure I would even want to catch that on film. It might replicate whatever they are. Evil is definitely attached to them. And we probably don't want to capture that evil on film.
I'm going to agree with that. I think not so much the alien side of the black eyed kids, more of the evil, the devil, that spiritual realm. That's how it's feeling for me. But with the Black Eyed Kid stories, I think mostly they're here in the US. We had one in the opening, but Mary, what were we finding when it comes to the stories, the account of the Black Eyed Kids from more of a global perspective? Where are we seeing them the most?
We actually find them all over the world. They're everywhere. Our opening one was in Madrid, like you mentioned. And then, actually, if we go across the pond in Canuck Chase, England, it is a hotbed for black eyed kids, actually, especially one terrifying little black eyed girl. who is said to be the ghost of a murdered child. So we're back to a ghost.
Well, let's tell that story. I think that's a short one.
In the woods of Cannock Chase, a mother was taking a walk with her daughter. A walk they had done many, many times before. Evening was coming faster than normal, and the air was damp. In the woods off the trail, a terrifying scream pierced the air. Holding her daughter's hand tightly, the mother froze. It sounded like a child. A child needed help. "Hello?" she called out. "Do you need help?" And just then, a female hooded figure about 12 years old stepped onto the path. Her dress looked out of place, from the wrong era. The mother pushed her daughter behind her out of instinct. "Are you all right?" she asked. The girl stood motionless, head down. "Can I help you?" the mother asked again, walking towards her. Slowly, the little girl tilted her head in a strange, slow jerking motion. Her face was pale and gaunt. Her eyes, black as obsidian, the entire socket hollowed and dark. She smiled, a cold, blank smile. She tilted her head and looked at the woman. The mother felt the panic rise inside her. The air had turned colder than comfortable, and the smell hung in the air of decay and something foul. She looked to her daughter, then back to the child who was once there and suddenly gone. Fearful that the child was suffering from some sort of condition and lost, she reported the incident to the police, who searched to no avail for the lost girl, who later became known as the notorious Black-Eyed Ghost of Cannock Chase. And there it is. And there is a lot on this particular ghost. Just Google Cannock Chase and Black-Eyed Kids and you'll find a ton. Now, there was a string of terrible murders that happened there involving small girls. So again, just tragic and horrible situations.
That is terrible with all the murders, kind of loosely or maybe not so loosely linked with the Black-Eyed Kids. Maybe there's something to the ghost of dead children, but I've kind of been thinking about those eyes and how we've been describing them. And they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. We've all heard that. So maybe they are black because there's no soul. Reflect on that.
Good point. Jesus said, "But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness." And that was more of a watch what you look at and what you're coveting scenario. But then again, if a black-eyed kid is looking to snatch a bit of something, maybe a bit of someone's soul, that's a body full of darkness, I'd say.
Indeed, it is. And think about that. The devil will absolutely devour your soul. Like most things that we talk about, I think we could just keep telling stories and pulling out some of the different theories. We love to chat, everyone knows that. But I feel like now everyone has some solid information on Black-Eyed Kids. And I kind of feel confident, Mary, that folks will not be opening their doors.
Yes, don't let them in. That is supernatural safety with Mary and Haley 101. Never let them in.
And listeners, we waited until the end of the episode to mention this, but we have a little housekeeping to get to, like always. First, if you liked this episode and you haven't done so yet, please hit that follow button, or if you're on Apple or Spotify, do that 5-star review.
And please, if you really love us, leave a kindly worded comment or send us a message on the website. We love getting and seeing those. It really makes all the work that we put into this podcast worth it.
Yeah, we do love, I say this all the time, we do love seeing those. And we've started kind of sharing those, that feedback and posting about it. So who knows, we might share your kind words as well. And you may have noticed in the title, this episode is the last full-length episode of season 1. Now, don't panic. Season 1 is not over yet. We are going to take next week off. And then for the months of June and July, we'll be back weekly with just our summer road snack episodes. We're going to take the summer off. And Mary, now that I say that, are we actually taking the summer off if we're still doing road snacks? But everyone definitely gear up for an exciting second season of Rebel Road podcast.
I'm still workshopping a name for our super fun summer episodes, but like our supernatural safety tips with the black eyed children, don't let them in. These episodes will have safety tips for any supernatural encounters or dangers you may face while enjoying your favorite summer activities like hiking, camping, boating, those type of things.
Yeah, you never know what you might pick up when you're out there. And I really like this idea, Mary, because we go through life the day to day, and think about that. We're always under attack from the supernatural realm. And even I myself, for our listeners, Mary and I, we have lots of different conversations about what we are going through in life. And we really sit there and analyze and reflect. And it often comes back down to, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, being under attack by the devil. You just never know. So I'm loving the supernatural safety tips. We can't wait to share all of those episodes with you. So until August, be safe out there and don't let the black-eyed kids in. Keep it weird. And when it gets a little too weird, do what Mary's mom did when she found thousands of cicada carcasses and pull it back to Jesus.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, she threw them out and said, Mary Elizabeth.